She thought it was just another exhausting day at the diner, serving rude customers, juggling endless tasks, and worrying about how she'd make ends meet for her son. But what Lisa didn't know was that Shaquille O'Neal, quietly seated in the corner, had been watching her struggles. What he decided to do next would not only change her life but inspire millions to believe in the power of kindness. The hum of a busy diner filled the air, the sound of clinking plates and muffled conversations blending into a steady rhythm. Among the bustling waitstaff darting between tables was a single mom, her face lined with exhaustion yet determined. Her name was Lisa, and while she moved quickly to serve the customers, the strain of juggling her responsibilities was evident in her hurried steps and faint sighs. Lisa had been working double shifts for weeks, desperately trying to make ends meet. The bills were piling up, and the thought of providing for her 8-year-old son, Michael, weighed heavily on her shoulders. Michael sat quietly in a corner booth near the back of the diner, his small backpack propped against the wall. With his head bent over a notebook, he scribbled answers to his homework, occasionally glancing up to watch his mom rushing between tables. Lisa glanced at him when she had a free moment, offering a tired but loving smile. She'd packed him a sandwich from home earlier, not wanting to spend the little money they had on diner food. Michael smiled back, but his eyes reflected a maturity beyond his years, a silent acknowledgement of how hard his mom was working for him. The diner was filled with a mix of regulars and strangers, some polite, others less so. Lisa bore it all with grace, even when a demanding customer loudly criticized her for forgetting extra napkins. She apologized quickly, biting her lip to hold back tears, and hurried to fix the mistake. In the corner, unnoticed by most, sat a tall man dressed casually, observing everything. It was Shaquille O'Neal, blending in quietly with the crowd. His eyes followed Lisa as she moved, her struggles becoming more apparent with every passing moment. Little did she know, her life was about to change. The lunch rush at the diner was in full swing, and Lisa was running from table to table, trying to keep up with the demanding crowd. The strain of working back-to-back shifts was catching up to her. She wiped her forehead with the back of her hand, juggling a tray of drinks while mentally reviewing the orders she needed to deliver next. Her movements were hurried, her energy stretched thin, and it was only noon. At one table, a customer complained loudly. "I asked for no pickles on this burger. Can't you even get that right?" Lisa apologized profusely, taking the plate back to the kitchen to fix the mistake. The cook rolled his eyes, muttering something under his breath about picky customers, but Lisa didn't have the luxury to react. She simply grabbed the corrected plate and rushed back to the table, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. Meanwhile, Michael sat quietly in his corner booth, diligently working on his homework. His pencil moved across the page, but his eyes occasionally darted toward his mom, concern etched into his young face. He understood far too well the weight she carried, even though she tried her best to shield him from it. In between serving tables, Lisa stopped by the counter to catch her breath. Her coworker, Sarah, leaned in with a concerned look. "You okay?" she asked softly. Lisa sighed deeply, glancing toward Michael. "I'm fine," she said, though the strain in her voice betrayed her. After a pause, she added, "I just need to figure out how to pay the rent this month. And Michael's school sent a note home about a trip coming up. I don't even know where I'll find the money for that." Sarah frowned, squeezing Lisa's arm. "You're doing your best. Don't be so hard on yourself." Lisa nodded but didn't reply. She didn't have time for sympathy, the next table was already waving her down. She grabbed a coffee pot and hurried over, her hands shaking slightly as she poured. In a quiet corner of the diner, unnoticed by most, a tall man in a hoodie sat at a small table. Shaquille O'Neal had walked in a few minutes earlier, blending into the crowd. Despite his massive frame and celebrity status, he moved with an air of humility, quietly observing the bustling scene around him. His eyes followed Lisa as she moved back and forth, her exhaustion evident in every step. He saw her juggle trays, apologize to rude customers, and exchange brief smiles with her son, trying to reassure him from afar. Shaquille didn't need to hear her conversations to understand her situation. He had seen countless hard-working people like her in his life, struggling to make ends meet while keeping their dignity intact. A particularly rude customer snapped their fingers at Lisa, demanding extra ketchup and loudly complaining about slow service. Shaquille's expression hardened as he watched her force a smile and hurry to fetch what they wanted. As Lisa disappeared into the kitchen, Shaquille leaned back in his chair, his mind already working. He hadn't planned on making a stop like this today, but now that he had, he couldn't ignore what he was seeing. He decided, then and there, that he was going to do something to help. Lisa didn't know it yet, but the tall man in the corner was about to change her life forever. Shaquille O'Neal sat quietly in the corner of the diner, his large frame almost hidden by the booth. From his spot, he had a clear view of Lisa as she rushed from table to table, balancing trays and plastering a smile on her face despite the obvious exhaustion in her eyes. Every so often, she glanced over at her son in the corner booth, giving him a reassuring nod before diving back into her work. It wasn't just her hard work that caught Shaquille's attention, it was her quiet determination. She handled every customer with care, even the difficult ones. He noticed her bending down to speak kindly to a family with small children, helping them with their orders. But it was clear she was struggling, her movements were rushed, her hands unsteady as she balanced trays, and she looked as though she hadn't slept properly in weeks. Then it happened. A particularly rude customer called out loudly, snapping their fingers to get Lisa's attention. "Hey! I said no onions in my salad. Can you do anything right?" The man's voice carried through the diner, turning heads. Lisa hurried to the table, apologizing profusely. "I'm so sorry, sir. Let me fix that for you right away." The man didn't let it go. "Maybe you should try paying attention." "Isn't that your job?" he sneered. Lisa's cheeks flushed, but she bit her lip and kept her head down. Shaquille watched the exchange, his jaw tightening. He saw Lisa retreat to the kitchen, her shoulders slumping as she fought back tears. That was the moment he decided to act. When Lisa returned with the corrected order, Shaquille motioned for her to come over to his table. She hesitated for a moment, unsure what he wanted, but she approached, wiping her hands nervously on her apron. Shaquille looked up at her, his expression kind but serious. "You're working really hard," he said, his deep voice calm. "You okay?" Lisa hesitated, her smile faltering. "I'm fine," she said softly, but Shaquille didn't buy it. "No, really," he pressed gently. "What's going on?" Her resolve cracked, and she opened up hesitantly. She told him about her long hours, her struggles to pay rent, and her worries about providing for her son. As she spoke, Shaquille listened intently, nodding. When she finished, he smiled. "I've got an idea," he said. "Let's fix this." Lisa blinked, confused. Little did she know, her life was about to change. As Lisa walked away from Shaquille's table, her thoughts were still heavy with worry. She had no idea that the quiet man in the corner had been carefully observing her struggles and had already decided to step in. Shaquille watched her serve a few more tables, his mind made up. He signaled for the check, but his plan wasn't just to pay for his meal, it was to make a difference in Lisa's life. When the check arrived, Shaquille discreetly pulled out a pen and a piece of paper. He jotted down a heartfelt note, "For you and your child. You're not alone. Keep going, you're doing an amazing job." He folded the note and slipped it under a stack of cash, $10,000 in crisp bills, enough to cover her immediate needs and then some. Shaquille didn't want to create a scene. This wasn't about him or his fame, it was about helping someone who truly deserved it. He placed the note and the money neatly on the table, finished his drink, and quietly stood up. As he walked past the register, he nodded politely to the staff and left the diner, blending into the bustling streets outside. A few minutes later, Lisa approached Shaquille's table to clear it. When she saw the folded note and the stack of cash, she froze. Her hands trembled as she picked up the note and read it. Tears welled up in her eyes as the words sank in. She counted the money, disbelief and gratitude washing over her like a wave. Who did this?" she asked a coworker, her voice shaky. Her coworker hesitated before saying, "That guy in the corner." That was Shaquille O'Neal. Lisa gasped, her tears now flowing freely. She couldn't believe that someone so famous, someone who didn't even know her, had taken the time to notice her struggles and help her in such a meaningful way. As the reality of Shaquille's generosity sank in, Lisa felt a renewed sense of hope. For the first time in a long while, she could see a way forward. Though Shaquille had left without a word, his act of kindness would ripple through her life, inspiring her and everyone who heard her story. Lisa approached the table with her tray in hand, ready to clear the plates and clean up before moving on to the next customer. It was just another routine task in her long and exhausting shift. As she reached for the check, her eyes fell on a neatly folded piece of paper tucked beneath a stack of cash. At first, she thought it was a mistake, a large tip meant for someone else. Her hands trembled as she picked up the note and unfolded it. The words written in bold, clear handwriting stopped her in her tracks. "For you and your child. You're not alone. Keep going, you're doing an amazing job." Lisa stared at the note, her eyes welling up with tears. Her fingers moved to the stack of cash, and as she counted, her breath hitched. $10,000. It was more money than she'd ever seen in her life, let alone received as a tip. Her knees felt weak, and she had to sit down at the booth to steady herself. Tears streamed down her face as she clutched the note to her chest, overwhelmed by gratitude. This wasn't just money, it was a lifeline. For months, she had been drowning under the weight of unpaid bills and constant worry about her son's future. This single act of kindness had thrown her a rope, pulling her out of despair. Lisa looked around the diner, her eyes darting between the customers, trying to figure out who had left the generous tip. She spotted her coworker, Sarah, and called her over, her voice shaking. "Do you know who sat here? Who left this?" she asked, holding up the note and the money. Sarah hesitated for a moment before leaning in closer, her voice a whisper. It was Shaquille O'Neal. He was sitting here earlier, but he left quietly. Lisa gasped, her hand covering her mouth. "Shaquille O'Neal," she repeated, barely able to believe it. Sarah nodded with a small smile. "That's him. He didn't want to make a big deal out of it." Lisa broke down again, this time with a mix of joy and disbelief. She looked at her son, who had been quietly watching from the corner, and waved him over. Hugging him tightly, she whispered, "Things are going to get better now. Someone noticed us." In that moment, Lisa knew her life had changed forever, thanks to the generosity of a stranger who didn't need recognition, just the desire to help. Later that evening, after her shift ended, Lisa sat at the small kitchen table in her modest apartment. Her son was asleep in the next room, and for the first time in months, she felt a sense of hope. The note from Shaquille O'Neal sat in front of her, alongside the stack of cash that would finally give her the chance to breathe. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Lisa decided to share her story. She opened her phone and began typing a heartfelt post on social media. "I've worked as a waitress for years, trying to provide for my son as a single mom. Some days are harder than others, and today felt like one of the hardest, until something incredible happened. A kind stranger left a note and a tip that will change my life. To Shaquille O'Neal, thank you for seeing me when I felt invisible. Your kindness will not only help me pay my rent but also give my son a better future. I'll never forget this moment. Thank you from the bottom of my heart." Lisa added a photo of the note and the money, hesitating briefly before hitting post. She wasn't sure what to expect but felt compelled to let the world know about the kindness she had experienced. Within hours, the post began to gain traction. Friends and family shared it, tagging Shaquille and writing messages of their own. "This is what true generosity looks like," one commenter wrote. Another added, "Shaq is the kind of role model we need today." By the next morning, Lisa's post had gone viral. Thousands of people had liked, shared, and commented on the story. News outlets picked it up, amplifying her gratitude and highlighting Shaquille's quiet act of generosity. Offers of help poured in, donations, job opportunities, and messages of encouragement from strangers who wanted to be part of the ripple effect. Shaquille, ever humble, responded to the buzz with a simple message on his own social media, "Just trying to do my part. Let's keep spreading kindness." For Lisa, the impact of Shaquille's gesture extended far beyond the financial help. The outpouring of love and support from her community gave her strength and reminded her that she wasn't alone. Her story became a testament to the power of kindness and how one act can inspire countless others to do good. The days following Shaquille O'Neal's generous act were a whirlwind of blessings for Lisa. With the money he had left, she was finally able to pay off her overdue rent, ensuring she and her son wouldn't face eviction. She caught up on utility bills, stocked her pantry with groceries, and even managed to buy a new backpack and supplies for her son, Michael, who couldn't stop smiling at his mom's newfound sense of relief. The story of Shaquille's kindness continued to spread, drawing attention from the local community and beyond. Offers of help began pouring in, job opportunities, donations, and messages of encouragement from strangers who were moved by her perseverance and Shaquille's generosity. One local business owner reached out, offering her a position with better hours and pay, allowing her to spend more time with Michael. For the first time in a long while, Lisa felt a sense of stability. The weight she had been carrying for years seemed to lift, replaced by hope for a brighter future. Michael, too, noticed the change in his mom, her laughter returning to fill their small apartment with warmth. When asked about his gesture, Shaquille remained as humble as ever. "I just wanted to help someone who deserved it," he said in a brief interview. "She was doing everything she could for her child, and I wanted her to know that people see her and care." Lisa's life had taken a turn she never thought possible, all because someone chose to act with compassion. Her story became a testament to the power of kindness, inspiring others to look around and help those who might need it most. For Lisa and Michael, it was more than a gift, it was a chance to start over. This story is a beautiful reminder of the power of small acts of kindness. What may seem like a simple gesture to one person can completely transform someone else's life. Shaquille O'Neal's quiet compassion not only changed the course of Lisa's struggles but also inspired a community to rally around her, proving that generosity and empathy can create ripples far beyond what we imagine. Every day, we have opportunities to make a difference in someone's life, whether through a kind word, a helping hand, or simply noticing someone who feels unseen. Kindness doesn't just change lives, it inspires others to pass it forward, creating a world filled with hope and connection. Let this story inspire us all to look around, lend a hand, and be the reason someone believes in good again. Together, we can turn small actions into lasting impacts. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming tales like this.